It's me again. Welcome to Drinks Coach. Must be a Thursday. Vinesack. Drinks Coach UK or lowercase. Ask any questions you like about anything. Suggest future shows. Maybe donate some money to the Drinks Trust if you've got a few spare coins. Many of us don't. Today is the other side of the coin of something I started about a month ago. If you'd like to look through my previous shows, not right now, obviously, you'll find there's one on Portuguese white wines. Well, today, Vinos de Portugal have asked me to do an interesting tasting for them, and I said I'd be delighted. So we've got some red wines as well, and a little unknown dessert wine, which is absolutely terrific and ridiculous value for money too. So we're starting off with a wine, which I believe is brought in by Foyster wines, I think so. And it's a wine that comes from the north part of Portugal. Then we've got a wine here from Borough Wines, again available online, but that started in Borough Market, which is from the south half of Portugal. And then a cheeky little dessert wine, which comes from the east coast, a bit sort of north of the Algarve, actually quite close to Lisbon, in fact. So let's give a map. I think the map's probably the best thing to do. Let's see if I can get this sorted. Here we go. So this is a map of Portugal, okay? We did some white wines last time from Vinha Verde up here, the Vinha Verde, which is the green bit. We had a white wine from the Dow, which is the purple bit, and the red wines from there as well. And then we did a wine from Alentejo, which is basically the bottom half, if you think about it. All those yellow bits inland is the Alentejo. This is the Tejo. They basically kind of used to be more or less the same as well. And the Algarve's right on the bottom there. So just giving you some sort of idea of perspective. If you go back, or anybody who remembers watching the Portuguese White Show, really Portugal's a game of two halves. Top half, lots of small, hilly, interesting, fine wine regions. And then there's a bottom half, which is more like the Australian model, where they have lots of vineyards growing single varieties and they blend cellar selections together. So the wine is made by blending in the cellar rather than choosing a particular vineyard in the north, in a lot of cases. But there are some real gems down there too, as we shall see. Right, so just get that back to the timer so I know what I'm doing. Okay, this is Ribeiro Santo, which is from the Dow, D-A-O, pronounced, I was once told, like dung, but it's not, down. Okay, so this wine is made from a couple of grape varieties. One's called Tinto Roriz, and the other one's called Alfrocheiro. Now, Alfrocheiro you probably haven't heard of, but Tinto Roriz you have, because in the north of Portugal, Tinto Roriz is actually the same grape variety as Tempranillo in Spain. Or it's a clone of. I mean, there's a few subtle clonal differences here and there. But what's lovely about this particular region, and I mentioned it with the very, very fine wine we got from Liberty Wines, the white wine we did in the white wine episode. Please look at it after this, because there's some lovely wines there. It's considered the white Burgundy of Portugal. There are some white wines there that are astonishing, made from a variety which has the same age potential and finesse as great Chardonnay, called Encruzado. And the red wines are the same. They have this wonderful perfume, soft, almost nebulous softness to them, like Pinot Noir and Burgundy does. You can't really feel the sides. It's texturally very soft and creamy. This wine's got quite a punch of wood as well. There's a little bit of oak because it's still relatively young. 2018. These wines are designed to age. And Tinto Roriz, being like Tempranillo, it has a Pinot Noirishness about it. And Alfrocheiro gives the sort of herbal spice, herbal fruit to it. Sometimes, in a very nice way, Alfrocheiro's reminded me of really ripe rhubarb. Delicious kind of ripe rhubarb sort of syrup. It has a sort of fragrance and a kind of hedgerow herbalness about it at the same time. So here we are, Ribeiro Santo from Down. It tastes really high quality. It tastes high spec. If it was from any other country, even if it was from the next door neighbour from Spain, I'd be thinking that must be £16 plus. We might be surprised. It might be less than that, but it'll be written down in the link below. Moving on. So we've just gone from the north, if you remember from the map, and we're now going to the south. So we're going to a very hot area where I always describe it as a bit like southeast or southern Australia. It's like Adelaide, Barossa Valley, that sort of thing. This wine's called Coelheiros, which means rabbit in Spanish, which is nice. So rabbits from Alentejo, 2016 was astonishing vintage across the whole Iberian Peninsula. So I'm quite excited about this. This comes from the lovely people at Borough Wines. Let's have a look at this. Well, it's much darker in colour. This is actually made from two grape varieties, which are Aragonés and Alicante Boucher. Now, both have very, very interesting stories. First of all, Aragonés is a clone or another name for Tempranillo. Yeah, no, it isn't déjà vu. Tinto and Aragonés are both other names for Tempranillo. It tends to be north or south divide, really, whether you use Aragonés. Aragonés is in the south often, but I have seen it used in the Douro as well. But in the north, they usually tend to call it Tinto Roriz. And Tinto Roriz is a great variety which is permitted in vintage port. So that's one of the reasons why in the north they tend to stick to their own. But the other grape variety, Alicante Boucher, is a very unusual little cheeky bugger. It's a grape that when you peel it, is purple. It's actually got red juice and sticks to you, can't wash it off, mulberry dark juice. So it's a wine that's always red. You couldn't make a rosé out of Alicante Boucher because there's just too much colour. And it has a crunchiness and a sappiness in the mouth, which almost doesn't quite taste like other varieties. And the amount of Portuguese reds I've tasted over the years where people are trying to push it and make a really grand wine of Alicante Boucher on its own or with heavier varieties like Syrah. And it's like in Roadrunner when the guy eats some Adams, tightens up your mouth. Ugh. Too much. But if it's carefully and judiciously used, you end up with a wine which has wonderful crunch. Crunchiest elderberries is a very, very similar flavour. Wow, I say that smells really lovely actually. This is from the Borough Market. This was the vintage that I was telling you about, 2016. I'm sure 2017 will be current vintage in Portugal. This is 15 quid. So I think these are probably similar money. I mean, it doesn't taste like it'll be more than that. In fact, it might be less. But I think £15, this smells like £15. When I say it smells like £15, it smells like £15 from Portugal, which is the same as saying it smells like £25 from Australia. They are exceptional value for money, these wines, and both red and white. I think if you're going to pick one country in the world that is hitting the sweet spot, it's Portugal. And do you know who else said that? Gary Vaynerchuk on Hot Ones, with harder questions and even hotter wings. So if you're not watching Hot Ones on YouTube, you're missing out. The guy called Sean Hughes, is it? Sean Evans, I can't remember his name. He's the most amazing interviewer, and he interviews some of the most famous people out there. And the digital guru that is Gary Vaynerchuk, who started his entire £150 million fortune just doing wine tastings just like this. He said Portugal, straight, instantly, best value. And he said the same thing. $15 buys you a wine in Portugal that you'd have to pay $40 for from California. Okay, he's right. Not only is that really nice, but it's absolutely exactly how I hoped it would taste. If somebody said, here's some Alentejo from 2016, it's made from Tempranillo and Alicante Boucher, I'll go, oh, I wonder if it tastes like that. It tastes exactly like that. You've got the silkiness of a slightly more fruit-focused Rioja. So you've got that lovely smooth fruit of Rioja. Then you've got Alicante Boucher just giving a little, just nib, like a goldfish nipping at your tongue. A little nibble of tannin and crunch. But there's a deep, darker fruit involved as well. And it's coated in a very, very gentle, very well assimilated oak character. What more can you ask for a wine for 15 quid? It's ticking all the boxes. And it'd be absolutely monster with a roast beef at Sunday. If you like your roast beef and you're one of the few people that's that's not vegan yet, I think this would be a fantastic roast dinner red. Going back to the first one again. Far lighter, lifted, more perfumed, a bit more sensitive in a way. This is robust. It's almost like tasting wine from New Zealand and Australia. That's kind of really how I'd describe it. But absolutely delicious, both of them. Very, very good wines. Absolutely represent the styles I expect from those countries. Leading us on to the final wine, which I'm going to pour in that. Do you know what this is? This is a Dartington Crystal port glass. which I designed. And it's the best glass I've ever designed. Believe it or not, I've actually designed a few glasses. And this, for me, is the most successful glass I've designed. The idea behind it being that, actually, because there's so much spirit in port, that by having the size just come out slightly, it releases a lot of the spirit, so you end up with all the fruit behind. If you trap port in a glass which is kind of curved like a normal wine glass, it's just too spirity. So, this is Ermelinda Freitas, or João Freitas, who's the founder of this company's Moscatel de Setúbal. Now, Portugal is famous for its fortified wines. Port, obviously. They have 3 world-class fortified wines in Portugal. They're all what we call vin do naturel, which is basically a wine which has only just started fermenting and they stop the ferment. So they've only got 1% alcohol. They bung loads of brandy to get up to about 20%, and then they let them age. So it's almost like fruit preserved in vodka. Oh, in for time. Good. So, yeah, I said there 3, didn't I? So there's port, there's Madeira, from the island of Madeira, capital Funchal, and then just south of Lisbon, down the coast, you get to Setúbal, or Setúbal, the action, that's how I pronounce it there. And this is Muscat grapes, which are wonderful eating grapes, but also produce some of the finest sweet wines in the world. Moscatel is the same as Muscat. The same grape variety you get that makes Asti, if you go back to the Italian sparkling wine show. It's the same grape variety that's in Baume de Venise, which is a wonderful sweet wine from the south of France. In Australia, there's loads of Muscats in Rutherglen, Brown Brothers Brown Muscat. This looks like it's a brown Muscat. It's a red-skinned variety, because it's got a kind of orangey redness to it. But these wines are trodden or pressed, and then they allow them to ferment for 24 hours or thereabouts, and then immediately the wine just goes to a barrel, and they're left there for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 20 years. Then they start to get pricey. Then you get vintage ones, but they're just the most extraordinary wines. If you bought a bottle of this in a supermarket in Lisbon, it's a whole bottle of fortified wine at 17.5% alcohol, which smells quite delicious, I'm sure of it. Oh, it's wonderful. It smells like rose hips, and almost there's a smell of rose water in there. But it's also got a smell of caramel, like the top of a creme caramel that's come straight out the grill. And when you taste it, it's so delicious. It's ridiculous how good this is. Even in Laithwaites, okay, you can buy this in Laithwaites most of the time. I think it's about 11 or 12 quid for a whole bottle. It's absolutely magic stuff, and maybe the most cost-effective fortified wine in the world. So if you like port, and you like sweet sherry, for example, they're not made the same way, but there's a similarity in terms of climate. I do strongly recommend you try a Moscatel de Setúbal. Just put it into Google, see who's got one. There'll be a local independent wine shop, or maybe even a supermarket, which is slightly forward-thinking, who will sell this. They're just fantastic wines. So here we go. Dow, Alentejo. God, it puts such a smile on my face. And Moscatel de Setúbal. Go to Portugal. You know it makes sense. Thomas, are you enjoying yourself in the Algarve? You're in the wrong place. Go north. See you next time.